The stars burned red with the fire of dying ships. Shattered hulls drifted silently in the void, their fragments glowing like embers as they spun toward the gravity well of a nearby gas giant. The battle had lasted only 13 minutes, but to Captain Elias Voss, it felt like the end of an era, a savage punctuation mark to humanity's failed attempts at diplomacy. Status. Voss's voice cut through the dimly lit command deck of the Revenant. Patrol fleet neutralized, reported Lieutenant Harlow, her tone sharp, efficient. She swiped through hollow displays, showing 3 Zord destroyers in ruin, their alien hulls split open like gutted fish. No survivors on scanners. Voss leaned forward in his command chair, his eyes reflecting the flickering wreckage. There had been a time when he'd hesitate before ordering a kill shot, back when humanity still believed war had rules. That time was gone. Check again, he said. Harlow frowned, but ran another sweep. 1 life sign. Starboard debris field. Zord officer pod, still intact. Bring it in, Voss ordered. The Revenant's magnetic grapplers locked onto the pod and reeled it aboard. The Zords rarely surrendered. They considered it shameful. But sometimes survival overrode pride, and Voss had no intention of showing mercy. Commander Imani, his second-in-command, approached. Her uniform was scorched from an earlier firefight, a reminder of how close the Revenant had come to being torn apart. "You're not going to interrogate him, are you?" "I want answers," Voss said, his voice like steel. "Where Kale's fleets are headed, what systems they'll burn next." And then he let the words hang in the air like a blade. Imani's jaw tightened. "And then we space him?" Voss didn't respond. The pod hissed open in the hangar, releasing a cloud of icy vapor. The Zorth officer inside blinked its reflective, multifaceted eyes and snarled something in its guttural language. Bound in containment shackles, the alien writhed, its claws scraping against the metal floor. Voss stepped closer, his boots echoing on the deck. "Tell me where your master's fleets are moving," he said in a flat tone. The translator drone hovered nearby, converting his words into harsh, clicking syllables. The alien's reply was defiance, spit glistening on its jagged teeth. "He says we are vermin," the translator droned. "He says cleansing us is his holy duty." Voss felt the old rage stir, a wildfire he barely contained. He saw flashes of the Tyranni's massacre in his mind, the firestorms raining down on civilian domes, the screams of his wife and daughter drowned out by orbital bombardment. Billions had died in that cleansing, and still, humanity had tried to negotiate. Voss pulled his sidearm and leveled it at the alien's forehead. "We tried being civilized," he said, his voice low and shaking with restrained fury. "Not anymore." The shot echoed across the hangar. The Zorth collapsed, a dark smear spreading across the deck. Silence followed. Back on the bridge, the crew worked in silence, shaken but not surprised. No one questioned Voss's decision anymore. "They'll notice this fleet didn't report back," Imani said quietly, watching the wreckage drift. "Good," Voss replied. "Let them come. The more they send, the better we know where they're not looking." She hesitated, then handed him a datapad. Intel from the Iron Council came in during the fight. Kale's forces hit another colony. Vega Prime. 40 million gone. Voss's fingers tightened around the datapad. 40 million, he repeated, as if the number alone could crush his chest. "They're burning us out," Imani said, system by system. "The Council wants to know if we can still win this." Voss let the datapad fall to the console with a metallic clatter. "We're not here to win battles. We're here to make sure humanity doesn't vanish. If that means burning their empire down, so be it." Hours later, Voss stood alone in his quarters, staring at the hologram of his family. His daughter's smile, captured just days before Durrani's fell, still pierced through him like a knife. He had promised her safety. He had failed. The door chimed. "Enter," Voss said, straightening. Admiral Serena Holt's face flickered on the comm screen. Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd lost too much but refused a break. "Captain Voss, we intercepted encrypted transmissions from the Dominion. Kale's flagship has been located. The Obsidian Crown, deep in the Lasara sector." Voss's eyes narrowed. "That's their heartland. which is why it's suicide to strike there, Holt warned. But if Kale falls, their chains loosen. You're the only one with a ship fast and insane enough to pull this off. Voss glanced around his dimly lit quarters. When do we leave? Holt's silence lasted only a beat. You're certain about this? Admiral, Voss said, his tone cold as a void, this isn't about certainty. It's about making them bleed until they remember we're not prey. On the bridge, preparations began. The Revenant's engineers worked furiously, welding plates, reloading torpedoes, recalibrating stolen Zortech that barely obeyed human commands. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a ghost forged in the wreckage of humanity's fallen fleets, a hybrid of desperation and brilliance. Voss addressed the crew over the intercom. The Dominion thinks we're broken. They think we'll die quietly in the dark. They're wrong. Every colony they burn, every child they slaughter. This is the answer they've been waiting for. We're going to show them what humans do when the chains come off. A cheer rose, raw and defiant. Imani leaned toward him, voice low. What if this is the mission that gets us all killed? Voss turned to her, eyes cold but alive with fire. Then we make sure it's the mission they never forget. As the Revenant turned toward the Lasara sector, the debris of the Zord patrol burned behind them, glowing faintly like the last embers of a funeral pyre. Voss stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, and whispered to himself, Civilization failed. Now we fight on our terms. The stars stretched into lines as the ship entered faster than light, carrying the weight of humanity's last defiance straight into the heart of the enemy. The Revenant cut through the black, its hybrid engines humming with a low, predatory growl. Deep within its steel belly, humanity's last warriors moved like ghosts, each of them hardened by loss, each of them fully aware that every jump forward meant fewer paths back. Captain Elias Voss stood at the tactical table, a glowing projection of the Lasara sector hovering before him. Red sigils marked Dominion strongholds, fortified worlds, shipyards, and the guarded location of Arch-Executor Zyron Kale's flagship. The Dominion's territory spread like rot across the map, suffocating what remained of humanity's colonies. Commander Imani approached, datapad in hand. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried that relentless tension that never left. The Iron Council wants confirmation you received their transmission. They're asking if we're actually going through with this. Voss didn't look up. Did they offer an alternative? No, she admitted. But they're terrified. After Vega Prime, we're down to 9 inhabited colonies. If we lose them, there's nothing left. Voss's jaw tightened. 9 colonies, out of 100. And they still think survival will come from hiding. He stabbed a finger into the holographic map. Kale won't stop until every last human breath is gone. We end him or we die waiting. The briefing room filled with the ship's senior crew, Lieutenant Harlow from Tactical, Chief Engineer Rafe Calder, and Medic Liz Torres. Each wore exhaustion, like an extra layer of skin. We all know why we're here, Voss began, his voice cutting to the stale air. Kale's flagship has been located. The Obsidian Crown is a heart of their campaign, cut out, and the Dominion staggers. Harlow leaned forward. And if we fail, there won't be enough of us left to recover. They'll wipe us out before we even regroup. We fail, Voss said sharply, and humanity's already finished. At least this gives us a chance. Calder crossed his arms. The ship's patched together with more stolen alien tech than I can count. If any of that fails mid-jump, we're nothing but a glowing streak in the void. Then don't let it fail, Voss said. There was silence. Torres finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. You all realize what this means? We're not soldiers anymore. We're executioners. Whatever humanity was before is gone. We're fighting to exist, nothing more. Existence is enough, Voss replied. Later, alone in his quarters, Voss pulled up the transmission from Admiral Holt. Her image flickered, the signal distorted by distance and interference. Captain, Holt's recorded voice said, the Council is divided. Some want to regroup at the outer reach and build defensive strongholds. Others say you're reckless, that this path will doom us all. But I know what's coming. Kale isn't slowing down. He's moving to crush the last of us within the next cycle. You may be the only one who can strike back. The message ended, leaving only silence in the soft hum of the ship. Imani stepped into the room without knocking. You're still watching it? Voss turned. She's the only one who understands. Hiding won't save us. Kale's not interested in mercy. Imani studied him for a moment. You want to kill him for the billions we've lost, or for your wife and daughter? Both, Voss said. His voice was like iron, unbending. The next day, the Revenant rendezvoused with a refugee convoy near the shattered remains of Sigma Enclave. Broken freighters and stripped transports limped along, their hulls scorched, their crews hollow-eyed from weeks of running. The leader of the convoy, Captain Aiden Juro, appeared on the comm screen. We heard you hit one of their patrol fleets, Juro said, his tone half admiring, half desperate. They're going to come after you harder now. You're painting a target on all of us. Voss's expression didn't waver. Good. I want them looking at me instead of you. You're playing with fire, Juro warned. If you fail, we all burn. Voss leaned forward, voice low but sharp. We're already burning, Captain. I'm just making sure the Dominion feels the flames, too. Back aboard, the crew resupplied what little they could from the convoy. Fuel cells, medical supplies, rations that tasted like rubber but kept them alive. In the mess hall, tension simmered like a storm waiting to break. Harlow sat across from Calder, slamming her tray down. We're throwing ourselves into the lion's den for what? A chance at killing one man. Calder didn't look up from his plate. One man's enough when he's the bastard holding the whip. Torres glanced at Voss, who had just walked in. Captain, tell her this isn't suicide. Voss stopped, hands clasped behind his back. It's worse than suicide, he said calmly. It's war. And war doesn't care how ready we feel. The mess hall went quiet. That night, Voss walked the silent corridors of the Revenant. Every bulkhead told a story. Scorch marks from past battles, names etched into panels to honor the dead. He paused by one inscription, Mira Voss, his daughter's name, carved there by Imani without his knowledge. He touched the letters with his fingertips, feeling the cold metal. This is why I fight, he thought. This is why there's no turning back. The Revenant's jump engines flared as they prepared to cross the outer Dominion lines. The crew gathered on the bridge, the air thick with anticipation and fear. Last chance to back out, Imani said, half joking, though no one smiled. Voss stood before them, his voice steady but fierce. We've been running long enough. The Dominion calls us vermin. They think fear will break us. But humanity has always been at its strongest when the world tells us to kneel. Today, we show them what happens when we refuse. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew. Set course for Lasara, Voss ordered. Full burn. The stars stretched into thin lines as the Revenant jumped. There was no going back. Moments later, alarms blared across the ship. A Dominion scout drone had detected them during the jump. Contact. Harlow shouted. They've marked our trajectory. Then we move faster, Voss growled. If Kale doesn't know we're coming yet, he will now. And that's fine. Let him see us coming. Imani's gaze met his. Captain, if they intercept us before Lasara, then we fight until we can't, Voss said. His hand gripped the console like he was holding on to the very edge of existence. As the ship tore through the void, Voss stood at the viewport, watching the stars blur. Each jump forward brought them closer to the Dominion's heart, closer to Kale, and closer to the point of no return. For a moment, he closed his eyes. He saw Vega Prime burning, his daughter's face vanishing in the flames, and the cold smile of Zora's soldiers as they watched cities crumble. He opened his eyes again, and the fire inside him was steady as ever. Next stop, he muttered under his breath. The heart of the beast. The Revenant emerged from faster-than-light with a sharp lurch, its hull groaning, as if the void itself had tried to hold it back. Before them stretched the Lasara sector, the heart of Dominion space, an expanse of stars girdled by war. Contact, Lieutenant Harlow said immediately, scanning her displays. Multiple fleets patrolling the system. Dominion defense grid is active. If they catch our signal, we're done. Captain Elias Voss studied the holographic map hovering above the command table. Lasara wasn't a battlefield. It was a fortress, layered with minefields, orbital cannons, and patrols so dense that sneaking through was like threading a needle while blindfolded. Cloak protocols, Voss ordered. Chief Engineer Rafe Calder's voice cracked over the intercom. Activating hybrid cloaking. If this alien tech glitches, don't blame me when the ship lights up like a beacon. The Revenant's hull shimmered with distortion as its stolen Zor systems engaged, bending light and masking emissions. It wasn't perfect. It never was. But perfection had never been humanity's weapon. Surprise and audacity had. The bridge fell silent. Only the low hum of systems and the crew's quiet breathing broke the tension. Voss's eyes flicked across the starfield as the Revenant drifted between massive Dominion ships, sleek, black vessels bristling with weapons, their hulls etched with symbols of dominance. "They're too close," Imani whispered. "They don't see us," Voss replied, his voice calm but coiled. "Stay on this trajectory. We slip between them, or we don't leave this sector alive." The ship crawled forward like a predator moving through tall grass. Every second stretched. Every heartbeat a drum awaiting for alarms that never came. 2 hours later, the Revenant hid within the jagged remains of a shattered moon orbiting a gas giant. The moon had been destroyed long ago, likely a Dominion test of power. Its debris field provided cover, jagged stone and twisted metal large enough to conceal even a dreadnought. Voss stood in the observation deck, the fractured landscape floating outside like a graveyard. Imani joined him, her face pale under the cold blue lights. "This place feels wrong," she said quietly, "like the bones of something that died screaming." "Everything the Dominion touches feels like that," Voss answered. She studied him. "Do you ever stop thinking about Tyrannies?" Voss turned to her, eyes narrowing slightly. "No, and I don't want to. The day I stop thinking about it is the day I've forgotten why we're fighting." The crew gathered for another tactical briefing, this time with urgency sharp enough to cut the air. The Obsidian Crown's last known position glowed crimson on the projection. "Getting to Kale's flagship means crossing 3 security layers," Harlow explained, pointing at the map. "Outer patrol fleets, an orbital defense grid around the Sara Prime, and the flagship itself. If we're detected at any stage—" "We won't be," Voss interrupted. Calder raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Captain, we can't bet everything on luck." "It's not luck," Voss said. "It's planning and execution. Luck is just the excuse people use when they fail." Later, in the mess hall, tension spilled into the open. The crew was restless, nerves stretched thin by the silent hours of hiding. "We're too deep," Torres muttered, picking at her rations. "One slip and there's no way out." Harlow slammed her tray down. "We can't keep thinking about retreat. That's what's been killing us for decades, hesitation." Calder leaned back, arms crossed. Hesitation or survival? Because last I checked, survival isn't cowardice. It's the only reason we're here. Voss entered, the argument halting as if someone had cut the sound. He looked at each of them, his gaze sharp but steady. "Fear is fine," he said. "Fear keeps you sharp. But doubt kills more than fear ever will. If anyone doubts this mission, say so now." No one spoke. "Good," Voss continued, "because from here on, there's no room for hesitation." Night's cycle aboard the Revenant was quiet. The ship dimmed to conserve power and avoid detection. Voss found himself walking the empty corridors, his thoughts drifting. He stopped at the viewport near the crew quarters, staring at the gas giant beyond. The reflection in the glass showed his face, lined, worn, but alive with something unbreakable. He thought of his daughter, of the promise he had whispered to her in her final moments. "I'll make them pay." Imani's voice came over the comm. "Captain, sensors are picking up movement. Dominion fleet closing fast." Voss returned to the bridge at a run. The tactical display showed 3 Zorth cruisers sweeping toward their position. "They've found us." Harlow asked, fingers dancing across her console. "No," Voss said after a moment. "They're just sweeping the debris field. Routine patrol." "Routine patrols don't bring 3 cruisers," Calder muttered. "Stay quiet," Voss ordered. "No signals, no emissions. We're ghosts until I say otherwise." The Revenant powered down all non-essential systems, plunging the ship into near darkness. The crew held their breath as the Zora cruisers passed close enough that their hulls filled the viewport, black and gleaming like blades. Then, a sharp beat broke the silence. Signal spike. Harlow hissed. Something on the hull. Magnetize. Voss's blood ran cold. Boarding probes. The Dominion had detected them, even through the cloak. Battle stations. Voss snapped. No hiding now. We take them out before they can report back. The Revenant roared to life, engines flaring as its weapons deployed. The first volley tore into a Zora cruiser, ripping through its hull with railgun slugs. The other two ships reacted instantly, turning their guns on a hidden dreadnought. Shields are holding, Harlow shouted, but not for long. Target their comm arrays, Voss commanded. They can't call reinforcements if they're deaf. The Revenant pivoted with impossible precision, its railgun spitting fire. Explosions bloomed across the void, shards of alien metal spiraling into the black. Minutes later, silence returned. All three Zora ships were drifting wreckage. The Revenant's hull was scarred, but still intact. Status? Voss asked. Calder exhaled hard. We're alive. Barely. Then we keep moving, Voss said. He turned to the crew, his voice fierce. Kale knows we're here now. Good. Let him. This isn't just an attack anymore. This is a message. As the ship re-entered faster than light, heading for Lasara Prime, Voss stood at the viewport again. The wreckage of the Dominion cruisers burned behind them, a trail of defiance carved into the heart of enemy territory. Wolf's Den, Imani murmured beside him, and we just kicked the Alpha. Voss didn't smile. His gaze stayed fixed on the path ahead. Then we finished the job, he said. The Revenant dropped out of faster than light above the Lasara Prime shipyard, a sprawling industrial behemoth suspended in orbit like a spider's web of steel. Hundreds of Dominion warships, from corvettes to towering carriers, rested within its shimmering defense grids. It was the heart of their war machine, and Voss intended to rip apart. Visuals up, Lieutenant Harlow said, her voice clipped. The hollow display filled with the glowing outline of the shipyard. Energy shields pulsed across its framework like veins of molten glass. We won't get a second chance at this, Commander Imani muttered. No, Captain Elias Voss agreed, his voice calm but edged. So we hit hard, we hit fast, and we make sure they can't rebuild what we destroy. The plan was insane, even by the Revenant standards. They would slip through the shipyard's outer grid, detonate plasma charges on its main reactors, and cripple its fleet construction for years. If they survived. Chief Engineer Calder's voice rumbled over the comm. If you want that shield down, I need 2 minutes, maybe less. After that, the core's going critical. We'll be caught in the blast if we don't clear out. Make it happen, Voss said. We'll give you the cover you need. The Revenant burst from the shadow of a nearby moon, weapon systems already glowing. Railguns screamed, ripping through the first Dominion frigates before they could respond. Fire blossomed across the void, orange-white blooms against the black. Targets locked, Harlow reported, her fingers flying over the controls, taking down their defensive turrets. Focus fire, Voss commanded. We clear the path for Calder. The dreadnought weaved through enemy fire, its hybrid thrusters pushing it beyond what any Dominion design could anticipate. Every maneuver was brutal and precise, a predator carving through a swarm. Inside engineering, Calder's team worked under fire, sweat running down their faces as they prepared the charges. 30 seconds, Calder barked. I want these reactors glowing like a sun before we leave. Back on the bridge, a Dominion cruiser slammed into their flank with a barrage of plasma fire. The hull groaned, alarms shrieking, starboard shields failing. Harlow shouted. Then take them out, Voss growled. The Revenant spun on its axis, railguns and missile pods unleashing hell. The cruiser split in two, venting fire and debris into space. Imani glanced at Voss. We're bleeding fast. Everyone's bleeding, Voss said, watching the shipyard loom closer on the display. Question is, who bleeds more before this is over? The charges detonated. The first blast rolled across the shipyard like thunder in a silent vacuum. Shields collapsed, glowing shards of energy scattering into the void. Secondary explosions followed, the shipyard's outer arms breaking apart as fire devoured its structure. Calder's voice cut through the comm, cores destabilizing. You got 90 seconds before this place blows sky high. Pull us out, Voss ordered. The Revenant turned sharply, engines roaring as it clawed its way out of the collapsing grid. Behind them, Dominion ships scrambled to contain the damage, their formation broken, their response frantic. They'll remember this, Imani said, watching the chaos. Good, Voss replied. They should remember fear. Then a voice cut to the comm, deep and cold, speaking perfect Terran standard. Captain Elias Voss, I wonder when you crawl out of the shadows. The bridge went still. Everyone knew that voice. Arch-Executor Zyron Kale. Voss stepped closer to the console, his jaw set like stone. Kale, I thought you'd be too busy slaughtering civilians to talk. A low, mocking laugh rolled through the speakers. Your defiance is admirable for a dying species. You've burned 1 yard. There are hundreds more. You will not win. Voss's voice was ice. I don't need to win. I just need to make sure you lose enough to remember us when you sleep. The comm cut out. Captain, Harlow said, her tone tense. We've got inbound signatures. Big ones. The Obsidian Crown is here. The Dominion flagship appeared on display like a dark god, its massive hull bristling with weapon arrays, its energy core glowing like a captured star. Engage full burn, Voss ordered. We're not ready for this fight. Not yet. The Revenant raced through the debris field, weaving between wreckage and enemy fire. The Obsidian Crown's guns lit the darkness with beams of destructive energy, each shot carving through space like a scythe. Shields collapsing. Harlow shouted, Divert everything to engines, Voss commanded. We outrun them, or we don't live long enough to regret it. A blast rocked the ship, throwing Voss against the railing. Sparks cascaded across the bridge, smoke filling the air. Torres from Medical reported over the comm, We've got wounded in sections 3 and 4. Casualties coming in fast. Seal the bulkheads, Voss said, forcing himself upright. Get me a jump solution now. Calder's voice crackled through. FTL drives fried from that last hit. I can patch it, but I need time. Time's the one thing we don't have, Imani muttered. Voss looked around the bridge. His crew was bruised, bloodied, but no one flinched. Then we buy it, he said. The Revenant spun on its heel, guns blazing. Instead of running, it charged. Are you insane? Calder shouted through the comm. Probably, Voss said. But if Kale wants us, he's going to pay for every meter. The dreadnought slammed a full barrage into the Dominion fleet. Railgun rounds tore through smaller ships, missiles detonating in white-hot bursts that lit the void. For 10 brutal minutes, the Revenant fought like a cornered animal. Crews shouted over the roar systems, every impact rattling the ship's bones. A blast tore through Section 6, venting a crewman into void before emergency shutters slammed shut. Damn it! Imani cursed, slamming her fist on the console. Voss's voice cut through the chaos, steady as a drumbeat. Focus. Keep firing. If we fall here, we fall loud. Finally, Calder's voice came through again. Jump drive online. I don't know how long it'll hold. Plot a course. Any direction, just away from here, Voss ordered. The Revenant's engines flared, the stars stretching into white lines as they tore away from the Dominion fleet. The crew was silent when the jump completed. Wounded were carried to med bays, smoke still curling from burnt panels. The smell of blood and scorched metal lingered. Voss stood in the center of the bridge, his face hard but eyes shadowed with the weight of the cost. Damage report, he said. Severe, Imani answered. Half our weapons are gone. Shields are down to 20%. We lost 12 crew. Voss's hand tightened on the railing. 12 too many. Later, he walked to the med bay, stopping at each bunk. Torres worked quietly, her hands stained, exhaustion etched into her face. They'll ask if this was worth it, she said without looking at him. Voss stared at the floor. It has to be. He returned to the observation deck, watching the distant stars. The Dominion shipyard burned in the darkness, a scar on Kale's empire. "We hurt them today," Imani said, stepping beside him. Voss nodded slowly. "But Kale knows we're coming now. He'll be waiting." She looked at him. "Then what's next?" Voss's gaze hardened. "Next, we finish it." The Revenant limped through the void, its hull scarred, its engine sputtering like a dying heartbeat. Yet there was no retreat. Ahead lay the Obsidian Crown, the Dominion's flagship, a warship so colossal it seemed to blot out the stars. It hovered above a blood-red world, its black armor gleaming, weapons arrays glowing with ominous brilliance. Captain Elias Voss stood at the command table, the ship's map of the battlefield rotating before him. Every line of his face was drawn tight. He had nothing left to lose. "This is it," he said. "We either bring Kale down here, or humanity dies with us." Commander Imani's voice was low but firm. "We barely survived the last fight. Our shields are paper-thin, and the crew—" "They know the cost," Voss interrupted. His eyes swept the bridge. "Every name carved into this ship deserve an answer. Kale gave us Genocide. We give him fire." The crew prepared in grim silence. Railgun shells were loaded, missile pods armed, and the battered hybrid engines coaxed back into life by Calder's furious repairs. Torres moved to the med bay, strapping down the wounded who insisted on fighting despite their injuries. "You're all insane," she muttered as she stitched a burn on a gunner's arm. "And I'm even more insane for staying here with you." On the bridge, the Dominion's comm signal cut through the silence. Arch-Executor Kale's voice was cold, unhurried. "Human Captain," Kale said, his tone almost amused. "I thought you would keep running. Instead, you bring your crippled vessel to my doorstep. Do you hope for mercy?" Voss stepped forward, his voice steady as steel. "Mercy? No. I came to end you." Kale's laugh was like a blade scraping across stone. "And me? You're standing on the bones of a dead species, Voss. You cannot change that." Voss's gaze hardened. "We tried being civilized. We tried peace. You answered with slaughter. Now you'll see what happens when we stop holding back." The Revenant surged forward, engines burning bright. Weapons fire lanced through the void, streaking toward the Obsidian Crown. The Dominion flagship responded with devastating precision, plasma beams carving fiery scars across the dreadnought's hull, shields failing. Harlow shouted over the roar of alarms. "Hold steady," Voss commanded. "Target their main gun array. Make them blind." The Revenant's railguns fired, each round slamming into the flagship's armor flank. Explosions rippled across its surface, but the beast didn't slow. A sudden impact threw the crew from their stations. The Revenant spun, flames roaring along its starboard side. "Section 5 is gone." Imani shouted. "We can't take another hit like that." Voss gripped the railing, his knuckles white. "Calder, can you overload a reactor? Use it as a weapon?" Calder's voice came back, ragged and urgent. "I can, but it'll cook us alive in the process." "Not if we ram them," Voss said. There was silence on the comm, then Calder's grim laugh. "You're out of your mind." "I like it." The Revenant dove low, skimming the surface of the enemy flagship. Every gun on the Obsidian Crown turned toward them. The bridge shook violently, panels sparking, alarms wailing in a chorus of chaos. "Lock course," Voss ordered. Calder prepped the overload. Imani turned to him, her voice sharp. "You're talking about suicide." "It's the only way," Voss said. His voice softened just enough for her to hear the weight beneath it. "If Kale survives today, everything we fought for dies anyway." Kale's voice thundered over the comm. "You think one broken ship can end me? You will only serve as an example, a warning to the rest of your pitiful kind." Voss stared at the image of the massive black vessel filling the screen. "We don't need warnings anymore," he said. "We need answers." The Revenant cut through the enemy's defensive fire, each shot tearing away more of its battered armor. The ship trembled like a dying beast, but its engines screamed defiance. 30 seconds overload, Calder called. Harlow wiped blood from her forehead. "Captain, if we do this, there's no turning back." Voss looked at his crew. Harlow at tactical, Imani steady beside him, Torres watching from the medbay screen, Calder and engineering covered in soot and fire. They were all broken in their own ways, yet unshaken. "There's no turning back for any of us," he said. The Revenant slammed into Flagship's outer shield barrier, its hull grinding against the Dominion's last line of defense. Sparks exploded across the viewports as they forced their way through. Reactor overload at 90%. Calder shouted, "Evac pods." Imani asked. Voss shook his head. "No time. If we eject now, the flagship survives." "Then this is it," she said. "This is it," Voss confirmed. Kale appeared on the main display, a towering figure with obsidian armor, his expression cold as a frozen blade. "You'll die here, Captain," Kale said. Voss's eyes burned with unyielding fury. "So will you." "Calder," Voss said into the comm, his voice steady. "Do it." The Revenant's core ignited, a blinding surge of energy building deep within its hull. The ship became a living weapon, a final scream of defiance hurtling straight into the obsidian crown. The collision was apocalyptic. A wave of white-hot fire consumed the Dominion flagship, tearing through its armor layers. The void lit up like a newborn star as both ships disintegrated in a chain reaction of fury and steel. In those last moments, Voss stood at the viewport, watching the firestorm bloom. He thought of Tyrannies, of Myra's laughter, of the billions who would never see another sunrise. He whispered only one thing: "Remember us." Then the light swallowed everything. Hours later, fragments of the obsidian crown drifted through the wreckage field. The Dominion flagship was gone, shattered beyond repair. For the first time in years, the Dominion fleets faltered. Kale was dead. Survivors from the Revenant's lifeboats, few and battered, were found by the refugee convoy days later. Imani, bloody but alive, was pulled aboard. She looked back at the drifting wreckage with hollow eyes and whispered, "He did it. He actually did it." The name of Elias Voss would echo across the colonies, not as a soldier or a captain, but as a man who burned the Empire's heart and gave humanity one last chance.